Hello, this is HookedByHappenstance. I'm Kendra, and it is time for a new project that's part of an old project. Today we are going to do a Yarn Tales Tiny Tales. That is an offshoot of my Yarn Tales reading shawls because I wanted to mix things up a little. So, what is going on right now is the Buzzword Readathon, which is a readathon where you read books that fall within a buzzword. The word this time is you. And so I decided that in addition to reading books for myself, which I am doing, I would also read some books with my kids. And I do this ordinarily during readathons as well. We tend to read chapter books or audiobooks or what have you. But I decided that we have a huge collection of picture books that has been underutilized since all of my children have learned to read, and they're so excited to read chapter books and things that we have been not given the love that our picture books deserve. So, I organized the shelves, and I pulled out all of the books that we had that have the word you in the title. There are 23 of them. So I made myself this handy-dandy, adorable little chart for Buzzwordathon for the word you, and I put one of these little buggy stamps for each of the picture books. Now the picture books are the ones that have the two bugs on them, and I'll explain why in a minute. The B's down here are for the audiobooks and chapter books I'll be reading by myself, independent for my kids. And there is room, obviously, to grow. If I find that we're filling these in, or we add additional books along the way, there's plenty of space to do that. So I went in and I made all the little stamps of the bugs, and underneath it I wrote the names of the books. Now what I did is I had just taken my little stack of Sharpie markers, which I've really been enjoying this particular set. I got it on clearance at Walmart. So these are the fine point Sharpies in the like bright kind of springy colors. And I just had them kind of randomly in an order, and then I just went through that order over and over along with that stack I showed you. So I wrote down all their names. So now we have randomly assigned a color to each book. See where I'm going here? This is me doing my normal random assignment of things. So I decided that I would like to explore these bags a bit. These are my current yarn scrap stash. Well, this is the acrylic in solid colors. And I use these bags that like sheets came in, and they live on a shelf next to each other. And I just leave the corner unzipped, and I pop the balls in as I get them done. And this has reds and orange, yellow and white and brown. And then these have greens, blues, purples, grays, and black. So that I can get everything all separated out and keep myself kind of, on track. So what I'm going to be doing is experiencing these books with my kids, and then as I finish them, I will be adding to a blanket using the colors. So I'm going to pull yarn balls out to match these colors. So we have red, yellow, it's like a pinkish color, but I think I'm going to use that as purple, blue, and green. So it's kind of going to be a rainbowy themed blanket in kind of springy tones. And I'm just going to use up all of the yarn and the scrap ball. And then for the next book, I'll pick the color that is associated with that book and go around in that way. How am I going to choose the order of the books, you ask? Well, my children are going to do that for me. So they are my randomizer on that end. And so it's going to be a really just like scrappy blanket. I think I'm going to do a round blanket because that way I don't have to worry about when the yarn ends being at the end of rows and it looking icky. I also think I'm going to do a spiral blanket, the one that I've done before where I do an increase with the post stitch, so I can just keep going and going and going and going until this project is done, and I'll never have to worry about slip stitching to join or doing anything like that. And I also won't have to pay attention too much to where my increases are. So I'm going to go and start reading with my kids, and then I will just insert the clips of the blanket when it's done. I'm not going to do this like a usual Yarn Tales video where I go through, I tell you what each of the books is about, but there will probably be a part at the end of this where I kind of go through and give you maybe some favorites that are on the picture book list. If you'd like me to make a video where I talk about every one of them, I can do that. I just don't know how much interest there actually is by other people in picture books. But I'm totally down to like talk about picture books. I love picture books. Love them. Love the art. Love the words. Love picture books. So I'm gonna go and get my reading on, and then I'll come back and tell you what all the buzz is about with Buzzwordathon and my Tiny Tales project. So this is what my blanket looks like at the end of day 1. I used an eye hook, which is a 5.5 millimeter, and it's like cupping a little. I used the eye just because it was what was next to me when I started. So what I'm going to do is for day 2, which is today, I'm going to move on to a J hook, which will open it up a little, and I think it'll all even out. It's fine. So a great deal of time has passed since we finished our Buzzwordathon for the word you, but we totally enjoyed the whole process. In fact, there are more of these familial readathons in our future. As soon as we finished reading all the you books, we started contemplating what books do we have other words that we could use. So there will be more of these in the future, but I want to fill you in on how things shook out this time, because whenever you do something new, I find it's like a learning curve. Like, you try some things and some things work and some things don't, and you just have to be willing to change those things to make it work better in the future. So the way that my cute little buggy sign turned out is like this. We read all the books. The books have all been added to the blanket, which I will show you in a minute. However, the cute sign, I mean, we just kind of ran out of steam for it. The reason is actually not because we didn't enjoy the process, it's because we enjoyed it too much. Now, the coloring in the bugs, what I had been doing is I was coloring in like one bug when we finished the book, and then I'd color in the other bug when I finished adding that segment to the blanket, right? And that worked out really well, and like I was having fun picking colors that kind of matched, and I think the thing is all turning out cute. And that worked great when we would only read like one book at a time, or in most cases, because I have 3 kids, we were doing this in rounds of 3, everyone got to pick a book, we'd go through that way. But because we were enjoying doing this so much, we were reading, instead of like 3 books at a time, like 6 or 9 books at a time. And that just turned out to be a lot of like random coloring that I then needed to facilitate on top of wanting to get into the blanket and having to do all this other stuff. And anyways, it just turned out to be like a silly, unnecessary thing that wasn't really helping me in the process, because I thought I was going to need to keep better track of what needed to be added, because I didn't think I was going to keep up on the blanket as I went along. But I actually was sometimes asking the kids if we could read the books because I was ready to get the next piece in because I was enjoying the process so much. Here we have the finished blanket. Here's just a little snapshot, like a little pie of it, so you can see what all the books looked like together. And we just went and we picked the colors based on the colors that were on that list. Like I said in that one clip, I started with an I because it was convenient and it was cupping, and so I moved to a J, and then I got to a point where it was kind of cupping too, so I ultimately ended up using a K hook for the outer parts, and that like natural progression as I went out seemed to work really well, and I like the way that it lays. It makes sense that there would be some gauge issues, not just, you know, because day to day your own gauge changes, but because I'm using scraps, there are a number of ends, that becomes a thing. But also, since they're different yarns, you know, even if you're using, most of this, in fact, this whole blanket is all Red Heart Super Saver. But sometimes when you're using worsted weight scraps, they're not necessarily all from the same company, so that has a little bit to do with weight. But if you use a lot of Red Heart Super Saver, you know that all of the colors are not really the same weight. I don't know if it has to do with the dyeing process or the like process they use to produce it. Something about it. Some of the yarns are slightly thinner and some of them are slightly thicker, which also kind of plays into that, like some of them are more pleasant to work with and some of them are less pleasant. It might not necessarily be that the thicker ones are more pleasant. They might just be softer. It all depends. But that factors into the gauge. And so I just went ahead and leaned into that. And when I felt that the blanket wasn't laying flat, I just upsized my hook. And then for the edgy bit, I just went ahead and did like a really simple, like scallopy edge, just made by, you know, increasing your stitches and then increasing the size, like single, extended single, half, extended half, double, and then just doing that. Before I did it, I just went around and counted all of my stitches. Found out somewhere in here I did miss one increase, so it's one stitch smaller than it's supposed to be, but these are going to be couch blankets for my kids, so I am not too concerned, but I'm really, really happy with this project. It is so just happy. Like, this blanket is just a huge pile of happy. Both the experience of making it, and I'm sure the experience of using it will be. There are more of these in my future, both because I enjoy this blanket style. I think it's akin to doing like a granny square for some people. For whatever reason, the granny stitch breaks my brain. Like, I can do it, they look fine. It's not that it breaks my brain because it's hard. It actually breaks my brain because it's easy, and it causes me this weird anxiety loop, and I don't know why that stitch does it. I don't know if you have a stitch that, like, breaks your brain, but if you do, just don't do that stitch. That's my solution to it. And instead find something that provides you that kind of flow state that other people claim exists, that isn't the thing that other people use. And in this case, these spiral blankets are the super easy form of that for me. So when I want something where I don't have to do any counting, but the increases all happen, this is the pattern that I use. There will be more of these blankets coming because there are more members of my family that are currently blanketless, and now everybody wants one. So keep your eyes here, because now that it is Scraptember, the scraps are all coming out of the closet, and we're trying to make them into things. So there will be more of these coming. We are actually already in progress, and I've made some tweaks to how the randomness is being assigned. So go ahead and subscribe down below if you have not already, so that you do not miss out when the next Tiny Tales video comes out and I talk about how I'm making the next blanket with the little tweaks applied. I will see you all next time. Bye!